My first trip to India was in 1988, and it was there that I met two men. I met Dr. M.A. Thomas, who was the founder of Emmanuel Ministries, and I met Dr. Sam George. Sam George was Dr. Thomas's son-in-law, and I immediately hit it off with Sam. In 1989, I was there when Sam and Elizabeth took the challenge from God to go to Tenkasi, Tamil Nadu. It was a place that they would never have chosen to go to, but they knew that that is the place that the Lord chose for them.
One of the things that you notice when you go into India is just the different religions that are there. Mainly you see Hinduism and Islam, and it's pretty interesting to drive around and see all of the temples and to watch people that really don't have that much giving up part of what they have to these statues that can't speak or hear, or it's the most ridiculous and sad thing that you've ever seen.
The whole reason why Sam George decided to go to Tenkasi, there was a temple there where Bibles were burned. This temple that was in the middle of town, it was, you couldn't miss it. It was the kind of thing that it almost kind of looked ominous looking at it from a distance.
Thousands of Gideon New Testaments and Bibles had been burned in front of the main Hindu temple right in the middle of Tenkasi. The anti-Christians were basically saying, we don't want the gospel, it's not going to be here, and we are going to make sure that we instill fear in the hearts of anyone that would come and want to preach or witness. Well, it had the opposite effect.
You could see the way that religion is steeped into the people there. It's something that they're used to. It's something that they've been around their whole lives. And to see the light of the gospel being shown in that kind of dark area, it was really exciting.
When I went to India for the first time, we went for a conference that they were having, and at the time we were in Kota, Rajasthan, which is in northern India, and at that point there was one building that sat on a piece of land and everything else was underneath tents. And just to see what God has done there, and knowing that Tenkasi didn't even exist at that point, is a pretty amazing testimony to God's faithfulness.
If you were to go to Tenkasi today, you would see that Emmanuel Ministries is divided into two separate campuses. On one campus, you will find the church and the matriculation school. On the other campus, you will find the Bible Institute and the children's home. When the ministry first started, there was no property. It was nothing. It was open territory. Tenkasi was just in a development stage. Sam was renting a home, and that's where the children's home was, that's where his home was, and that's where the church was. But over a period of time, we began to claim land. I mean, literally claim it. We walked it. We prayed around it. Sam did this repeatedly, day after day after day, and any time that I was there, I would join him. God gave the land.
We walked around it and prayed that God would give it to Emmanuel Ministries. And a water well was put in that night in memory of Dave's dad, David Hearn and Janet Hearn. And we had a huge picnic that night, and it poured down rain. And there were 50 children standing under 3 umbrellas. It was quite a sight.
Just to see the way that God has provided and taken care of them in the past 25 years, it's really mind-blowing when you're there, once you see it.
Probably the most impactful thing I saw all week was when Sam George asked all of his children to come up on stage, not just his biological children, but the orphans, their husbands or wives, their families, and the stage just completely filled up with people that were directly impacted by the ministry that they had begun there.
One of the children of the orphanage, I first met when she was 2.5, and we'd just gotten out of the van and stepped onto the ground, and they handed Sona to me. And Sona was this beautiful little Indian girl, and they were telling me her story, that the villagers where she was born were going to bury her alive in a basket because her parents couldn't take care of her and didn't want her. And so the call came to the orphanage, and they said, of course, we'll take her. And when Sona was 2.5, she was reciting the books of the Bible to me. She's just a very, very smart little girl. And to watch her grow over the years has been an amazing thing. And this time when we were there, Sona was the first person that spotted me when we pulled in and waved to me. And she came up to talk to us. She's 14 now, which is an amazing thing. And she's just turned into this godly woman. And she's as smart as ever. She has dreams of becoming a doctor. But if you ask her what she wants to do after she graduates from high school, she'll say whatever God wills. And she's just become this amazing woman of Christ. And it's just an amazing thing to think that possibly that girl that's so smart and so well-spoken and so poised now almost ended up buried alive in a basket. But God reached down and rescued her from that.
In 1990, Sam and Elizabeth decided that education was priority, and they checked out schools in the Tenkasi area, and they just weren't happy, so they decided they would start their own school. So with less than 20 kids, they started Emmanuel Matriculation School. They now have about 900 kids in the school, and with 3 or 4 staff members, they now have 70.
I was really impressed with the school. Sam George really runs a tight ship there. It was really impressive to see the students all come out and line up, and when he spoke, when his booming voice went out, it's like they all snapped to attention.
Through the years, they have had this vision of letting the school grow so that people in the community would be interested in sending their children. And in order for that to work, they had to have a school that would produce students with a great deal of academic awareness, achievement, and also have extracurricular activities that would help kids develop in other areas.
Because they teach English there, it's become a very reputable school in that area. And so with that, a lot of their children that come in are Hindu and Muslim children. They learn to speak English with the Word of God, and it's such an amazing thing to watch that take place.
Some of the children I've known since they were infants at the orphanage, and now they're young teenagers, and they're like my own grandchildren to me. It's amazing to see them grow up into the people that they've become.
When my daughter was 11, I had the opportunity to take her to India with me. She looked out, and there was a little girl that was pounding on her window beside her face and was begging for money, and she was doing this, like, I'm hungry, I need food. And my daughter at 11 turned and looked at me and said, I don't understand why you love it here so much. It's so depressing here. At some point, she started hearing Elizabeth tell the stories about the children that are there and how they ended up there. And all of a sudden, I could see it click in her 11-year-old mind. And she looked at me and she said, Mom, does that mean that these kids, if they hadn't come here, would have been like the little girl on the street? And I said, yeah, that's what they would have been.
Call my name in the lonely night. Sweet forgiveness in the morning light. Like a child in your arms, I belong to you.
My name is Grace Rooney. I'm a senior at St. Bonaventure, and I'm a member of Bond Athletes for Christ that we started about 2 years ago. Alexis, who was a founding member of the group, she has really big ties with India. Lex has been like 3 times, and so we said, well, why don't we use our group as a means to help and, just send blessings to our brothers and sisters in India. We decided let's send them bracelets. We're going to hand make some bracelets, and it'll just be a little connection between Bonaventure and Tenkasi. And so it was a really personalized gift that we thought, hey, this will be just a little reminder to them. And then we also wrote them cards, just personalized cards, and just talked a little bit about us and our faith and some of our favorite Bible verses. It's amazing to know that there are people on the other side of the earth who you're never going to meet, they share that same love for Jesus Christ as we do. And just being able to share that in a little way was just unbelievable. Believers Chapel has supported us the whole time, and we're just so blessed by that, to have a local church who just really stands behind us. And just thank you to you guys for making this possible.
Thank you, St. Bonaventure.
I think the most impressive thing that I saw through the week was the legacy that was being created right before our eyes there. To see the students come back, some of the orphans come back that were there many years before, to hear their stories, to hear them share their testimonies about what God was doing in their lives, the ministry that God was allowing them to do throughout India. I was really impressed with the way that they took what they learned and they were actually building on it. And ministry was being accomplished all over India because of the faithfulness.
When you walk with God, you find Him to be extremely faithful. And not only faithful in what His Word says and what His Word teaches, but faithful in what He does in people's lives. I've seen so many lives transformed in the last 25 years, and we had the privilege of seeing students that I had helped send out into the field through the years come back and give great testimony of what God was doing.
One of the highlights of the last trip was the 25th anniversary that they were celebrating, and they had a special program that we got to take part in. And it was just like an amazing thing to see. There was a graduation ceremony that took place for the Bible Institute. As happens in all of the Bible Institute graduation ceremonies, there's always a challenge to those graduates. Because oftentimes when those students graduate, they go from the Bible Institute out onto the field. And some of the places that they go, the rate of persecution is very, very high. And those Bible Institute students understand that. They understand when they graduate that they're leaving the safety and the bubble of Emmanuel Bible Institute and they're going out onto the field.
We really want to use the graduation platform to encourage these kids, to challenge them, but really to remind them that what they're about to do is for eternity. We challenge them not just to live for Jesus, but we challenge them to be willing to become martyrs.
If the martyrs does come tomorrow, are you willing to face that in your life?
That's a heavy message. I have watched these kids get down on their knees and actually weep and cry as they declare publicly that they are going to follow Jesus. We have been given a call
Lord, may that be the cry
from God,
every heart here.
from Jesus,
May
and
we, Father, be
our
free
part
of
is obedience.
self and selfishness.
And it isn't about convenience or comfort. And these young people are going out into a hostile environment, and they don't have any support financially, and in some cases they have no support from their family. So we are really asking them to put their life on the line right from the start, and they do it. They do it with great anticipation.
To watch them stand and just say, yes, I'm willing to not just live for Christ, but I'm willing to be persecuted for him, and I'm willing to die if necessary for him, for the cause of Christ, is a pretty humbling thing.
I had seen them graduate years ago, and they came back and testified to how the Lord is using them. And it's amazing to me how the gospel is spreading throughout India because of Emmanuel Ministries.
I think the thing that really hit me after only being there a couple of days was that the way that even with the weather and the number of people that were there, just the way everything just seemed to weigh on you, just kind of zap your energy. And then to step back and look at these people that do this every single day really gave me a huge respect for the work that they're doing there, for just the quality job that's being done.
Today, we see great development going on, and God has raised up really literally an army of supporters for this work. So something that was started from scratch has now taken on a great identity in Tenkasi, and all the people in that area understand that God did an amazing thing, and we are going to see more expansion because we are trusting God to bring more people in so that we can train them to go out and evangelize India and many other countries in that Asian theater.